In 1884, a New York prison board member by name Richard Dugdale realized that 6 of the prisoners were from one family. Intrigued by the phenomenon, he decided to trace down their family roots and was able to trace them to the family of a man by name Max Jukes. Born in 1920, together with his wife, they were arrested on and out of prison because of misconduct, rioting in the streets, and drunkenness. They had 2 sons and 4 daughters. When Richard Dugdale decided to study 1,200 of their descendants, he found out the following. 52.4% of all girls born in that family ended up as prostitutes. 310 of them were paupers and homeless. 300 of them died before the age of 30. 180 were alcoholics, 160 were drug addicts, 150 were incarcerated in prison for an average of 13 years each. 67 of them died of syphilis, then a killer disease, and 7 of them had killed somebody. During the same period, they decided to do a contrasting study of a family by the name Edward Jonathan, then president of Preston University, married to one woman for 31 years until he died. They had 11 children. And when they studied 1,400 of the descendants of this man, Edward, born in the year 1703, they found out the following. 13 of the descendants ended up as college presidents. 66 of them were university professors. Another 66 were physicians. 75 of them either served in the army or in the navy. 85 of them had written classic booksellers that had sold all over the United States and Canada. 100 of them were attorneys, including that 2 U.S. state judges, and 80 of them were in senior public office, including 3 governors, 3 senators, 1 comptroller of the U.S. Treasury, and the 3rd U.S. Vice President, Aaron Burr, who served under Thomas Jefferson. 2 families in the same generation with different results in about 100 years. I wonder what the statistics would reveal in the year 2015. While there is little you can do about your ancestors, there is everything you can do about your descendants. Parenting is not child play. The challenges in our society today are many and complex. When I was growing up, we used to stand up when a teacher or a parent was passing by. When I was growing up, there were very few TV in homes, and those which were there were black and white. And if you can remember, it used to open around 5 o'clock in the morning and close around 11 o'clock. The whole country was speaking the same language. Today we can't even number the number of channels available. When I was growing up, any parent in the neighborhood could have disciplined us. Today you can't spank your neighbor's child. You helplessly watch as they play football, which hits your car and sometimes smashes your window of the car. When we were growing up, we did not have a mobile phone. Today, kids are much more informed than we were when we were in college. Parenting today is complex. Today, I'll take you through an extremely provocative speech, which I was given the theme by the committee, and that is calling the man and the woman out of your child early in life. Calling the man and the woman out of your child early enough. I'm going to discuss with you 12 key points in this critical message. I'll discuss with you some 12 key points. Number one, understand your child. Understand your child. On 24th of January, the year 2004, I was invited as a guest speaker to speak on the topic Dream Killers. It was a 3-streamed boys' school. At the end of my presentation, a young man came over to me and he said, you know what, I've already forfeited my dream career. Why is that? I asked. And the young man said, when we were in Form 1, one of our teachers asked us what we like to do in life. And I said, I'd like to be a journalist. And as soon as the class ended, one of the boys came over to me and asked me, excuse me, have you ever gone to the TV, look at the people who read news, and then get back to the mirror and look at yourself squarely? Do you realize there's no media house that can employ you, even if you pay them to employ you? And the boy forfeited his dream career. And I want you to know that when these kids are going to school, even Sunday school, They tear each other day in, day out. And it's only a parent who can affirm them. Many years ago, there was a Tanzanian athlete who was scheduled for marathon in Mexico. During the race, he hurt his leg so badly that he couldn't run. About 4 hours later, he was approaching the finishing line. The journalists and the reporters went over to him and asked him, how come you kept on running 4 hours after the medals were already awarded? And he looked straight into the eyes of the reporters and said the following words, excuse me, gentlemen and ladies, when my country sent me to this country and paid the air ticket, they never sent me here to compare myself with the other athletes. They sent me here to finish the race. Interesting enough, today, almost every parent I know among the working class in Nairobi, they push their child to be an A child, and some of them have the audacity to push their child to be number one. And this is interesting because in Kenya, every parent used to be number one. You know, this is a very good country. Our children are very well behaved, and the child who misbehaves is our neighbor's child. Thank God for Kenyans. And so we push them to be that ideal child. I want to see whether you can remember a story. Please talk to me if you can. The master was going on a distant land, and he decided to give some talents to his servants. He gave one of them 5 talents, and he worked very hard. He returned how many in total? 10. Thank you very much. And the master said, well done, thou good and faithful servant, enter ye into the joy of the Lord. Then there was another servant who was given 2 talents, worked very hard and returned how many in total? 4. And the master said, well done, thou good and faithful servant, enter in the joy of the Lord. Notice, they were commended equally. They didn't perform equally. One returned 10, the other one returned 4. But the master commended them equally. Their children presented by some parents in our midst who can play cricket and basketball and swimming and volleyball and music and piano, and they excel in academics all at the same time. There's another child presented by a parent in our midst. If he or she tried to do 3 or 4 activities, they will flop in all of them. It is not your duty to tell your child to be number one. Do not ever force your child to run on the fast lane. I know many of you listening to me in this live audience are coming from the corporate world, where you have terms like competitive advantage. And there is that desire to outshine your competitors. And unconsciously, we take it home. And I challenge you today, children should not run on the fast lane, they should run on their track. They should finish their race, not run mommy's race or daddy's race. You know, mothers in Kenya are very interesting. When the children are 4, 5, or 6 years old, right on the dining table, you hear a parent telling a child, finish food before so-and-so, as though there was scarcity of meal in that house. And when they grow up, they become a certain governor of County X, and they know they have 2 years to go, they grab very fast because mama said when it's on the table, grab very fast. Without knowing, you nurture them into corruption. Every child has their own pace of eating, they have their own pace of studying. And your duty is to encourage them to finish their race, not to run on the fast lane. Then there was another character who was given the talent. He worked very hard and returned 1 talent. And he began to accuse the master. And he said, I knew your hard, master. You like reaping where you did not sow. Then the master said, well done then. Why didn't you give my money to KCB, Equity, Barclays, name it? I would have gotten it back, at least with some interest. Go to hell, where there is wailing and gnashing of teeth. Notice, the master didn't say to hell because he committed adultery. The Bible never says he murdered anyone. The Bible says he went to hell because of laziness. And that's your duty as a parent, to let these kids know that you praise achievement and progress, not beauty. For the benefit of those who come to church only during Christmas, this story is in Matthew 25. You can check it out in your own free time. But the idea behind our God was, remember, this story was not given by the Apostle Paul. This story was not given by the Apostle Peter. This story was given by Christ himself. And we need to pick up a fundamental principle there, that there is a race set for each one of us. You should finish that race, as it is written in Hebrews 12. Identify that race and finish that race. And encourage your child to finish that race. Don't encourage them to compete with other kids. They should compete against excellence. They should compete against their maximum potential. They should compete to finish their race and finish strong. Point number 2. Protect your child. Protect your child. I'll never forget one time I was speaking at boys' school on the topic of sexuality. And a young man came to me, he was a Form 2 boy, and told me I'm hated by my classmates. Why is that, I asked. He said, they say I have a big nose. To be honest with you, I never realized the size of his nose in our brief discussion. But I have some good news for you. About 4 years ago, he cleared his undergraduate studies at the University of Nairobi, and the size of his nose has not yet changed. He has managed to live with it. I learned a long time ago, girls with low self-esteem are highly vulnerable to sexual promiscuity, trying to prove they're beautiful. Girls with high self-esteem need not to prove their beauty to anyone. They are comfortable with their looks, with their size, with their shape, with their skin pigmentation, with their hair. Boys with low self-esteem are highly vulnerable to violence or violent language, trying to prove their manhood to their peers. Boys with high self-esteem do not need to prove their manhood to anyone. They recognize it does not reside in their muscles. And I agree with the drafters of the theme of this meeting. It is the responsibility of fathers to call the man out of their boy. He doesn't need to hear it elsewhere. Fathers, hear this. It is your responsibility to call the beauty out of your girl. No girl should hear the term love for the first time from outsiders because it comes packaged as lust. They should hear it for the first time from their fathers. Although fathers with kids aged 0 to 12 do not have a problem telling a girl she's beautiful until they become teenagers, and suddenly fathers will shy to be generous with the same compliments. But it's your duty to affirm to this girl because they're in need of affirmation during their teenage more than any other time. And that's the time we withdraw than any other period in history. It is your prerogative as a parent to form an emotional edge around your children. Point number 3. Train your child. Train your child. Now, there's a fundamental difference between teaching and training. Teaching, generally speaking, is dispensing information. Training, on the other hand, is leading the way. In training, you don't tell people what to do, you lead them in what to do. That means as a parent, if you're telling your child what to do, you're wrong. You should be leading them in what to do. If there is anything you're doing as a parent that you do not want your children to duplicate, you're wrong. You should be leading them in what you're doing. You know, in Kenya we have trains. And a train is nothing more but the engine of the locomotive. Everything else hooked up to the train, rather the engine. In the British language, they call them wagons. In America, they call them cars. They can be 3 or 20 or 100. The idea behind the English word train means whenever the engine moves, the wagons follow. They don't choose. If it turns right, they all turn right. If it turns left, they all turn left. They don't choose the direction. They are trained in a given direction. Let me break it down for us. To train means if I reach home 3 in the morning drunk, I'm telling my son to make it 6 in the morning drunk. Perfect. I've shown you the way. To train means if I am beating their mother, I am telling my son, don't leave it at the beating level, at least fracture her leg. I've shown you the pattern. I'll never forget a girl who was chased home because of smoking. A true story from Nairobi, not from the Netherlands. 2 weeks later, she comes back with the mother. The mother gets into her handbag and bumps some 2 cigarettes, lights a cigarette and gives the daughter 1. And then looks square into the eyes of the principal and asks the principal, what are you talking about? Puffing the smoke into the principal's eyes. In yet another school, a girl was given a skirt, a school almost everyone here can recognize. And the civilized girl she was, or at least though she was, she decided to trim it to size. And the principal gave her permission to go home for 2 weeks to regain her sanity. She comes back to school with who? Her mama. And the principal looks at the mother's skirt, daughter's skirt, mother's skirt, daughter's skirt. And the Spirit of God comes upon the principal. And the principal says, you know what? Your daughter is deteriorating in academics. Charity begins. If charity begins at home, parents will not be telling children what to do. They will be leading them in what to do. Fathers will not be telling their wives and daughters to go to church. They will be preparing them to go to church. You see, they never called themselves Christians. In that great city of Antioch, people observed their mannerisms, their speech, the way they walked, the way they talked, the way they listened and respected each other. And they say these guys must have been with Christ. They talk like Christ. They walk like Christ. They behave like Christ. They look like Christ. They are Christ-like. They are Christians. They never call themselves Christians. You know, I'm a firm believer. There is no one in the pursuit of intelligence and honesty. There is no one in his right frame of mind who can reject Jesus. I honestly believe what they reject is the picture we have portrayed about Christ. A jealous Christ, a malicious Christ. They have never known the true Christ. A Christ who could dare stand in the street and challenge the audience. Can any of you prove me of sin? That's how the early church was. In the words of St. Francis of Assisi, he was asked by a parishioner preacher, how should we preach? He replied, preach all the time. If necessary, use words. In the words of the most popular military leader in U.S. history, General Douglas MacArthur, a good general does not push his soldiers from behind. A good general leads them from in front. May I suggest to you this evening, parents tell, good parents explain, superior parents demonstrate, but great parents inspire. Believe me, friends, you attract who you are, not who you want. You may want to attract a governor into your life. You may want to attract a cabinet secretary into your life. You may want to attract a corporate leader. In reality, however, you don't attract who you want, you attract who you are. Like begets like. Just like a young tree, the gardener shapes it, and it takes all the shapes that the gardener so desires. So must you reproduce yourself in the life of your child. Kids are like tape recorders, watching your every move, listening to your every speech, and eventually you duplicate yourself into their lives. You see what I do in my house every evening? I go and kneel by the bedside of my 2 children. I bless them every day. I pray for them every day. If I make a mistake of not doing that, they will demand it, because it was installed before they learned how to speak. It's a culture that I cultivated. Number 4, connect with your child. Connect with your child. To connect means to create the time, to deliberately create the time. You see, ladies and gentlemen, we have time for what we value. As I speak to you tonight, there's a phone call that can come and you walk out on me, irrespective of what I'm sharing. There are other people who will be looking for you in the course of this fellowship, but you may never remember to call them back. Tomorrow morning, you will call people depending on who you value and in the order of priority on how you value them. Put it otherwise, we have time for what we value. We have time for who we value. So if you are struggling to choose between making money and your children, if you are struggling to balance between work and your children, you might as well quote me, you don't value your children, you are in deception. Now, I want to pick 2 characters for you, and I trust and hope no one will use this message or distort it for whatever reason. I have deep honor and respect for the late President Nelson Mandela. I honestly believe he was larger than life. He was the greatest icon in our generation by the time he died. But I've often wondered, although we are told he may have suffered 27 years in jail, among many others, he lost 3 of his own children to HIV/AIDS. Is it possible? Don't answer me. Food for thought. Is it possible? Is it possible? Deep down his heart, he may have questioned his priorities. He may have wondered, was it worth it to save a great nation out of the forces of apartheid at the expense of my own children? If I needed to save a great nation and the world at large, then did I need to start a family? Food for thought. I wonder how many listening to this voice tonight would want to reach the epic of their career ladder and lose their own children to HIV/AIDS, to drug abuse, to violence, to crime. The only true Nobel laureate from this nation, Professor Wangari Maathai, on her deathbed, it was reported in the local dailies that the one thing she regretted is that she never spent enough time with her own children. If I may paraphrase the good professor, she learned a little bit too late that parental responsibilities cannot be delegated. You can't pick it up from where you left after gaining the fame and the fortune and then pick it up. The growth of children is irreversible. It won't wait for you to put up apartments and buy land and shares and stocks and then pick it up from your busy schedules from where you left. Once you lose every stage, the change is irreversible. A friend of mine one time told me something very interesting. He was carjacked, taken to Gong Hills, and the crooks were so convinced that he was refusing to part with money, but they were so gracious to give him some 5 minutes to make a last call. And they told him, look, we're going to give you a phone because we're going to kill you in just a moment. Make a phone call to whoever you may want. Please talk to me, talk to me. Talk to me if you can. Who do you think he called? His wife. Oh, what do you think he said? What do you think he said? Talk to me, talk to me. What do you think he said? Kuna mawe nilikuwa nimeacha hapo ya kujenga, sio kimao. Ile mjengo si kumaliza. Do you think that's what he said? Did he call his boss? Obviously he's still alive. That's why he gave me the story, so don't be sad. They released him. But if you really want to know the most critical relationships and the priorities in your life, just imagine or pretend you're in such a situation and you'll get your house in order. You see, children require presence, not presence. And there's no amount of presence that will bribe your connection with your child. You know, sometimes I do a lot of parental talks. I've done this more than 300 times. And during the Q&A, sometimes I get very strange questions from people. One of the most popular questions, you know, how can I know a child who is in drug or substance abuse? And I definitely threw the question back to the audience with a rhetoric answer. But how, in the name of common sense, would you know a child who is in drug or substance abuse unless you spent enough time with them? Because sometimes children who are outgoing become suddenly withdrawn, overdress when it's hot, underdress when it's cold, overeat, undereat. How would you draw a line between normal teenage behavior from a normal teenage behavior unless and until you had enough time with them? Sometimes I tell parents, just get into the bedroom of your son, your daughter, when they hit 13, 14, and check their wall hangings and the lyrics of the music they're singing, their photo albums, if any. And the first thing the parents tell me, no, I can't do that. Why? That's interfering with their privacy. At what point did you become a stranger? Don't worry, I'm going to answer your question. When she was 3, 4, 5 years old, you sent her to the house girl to do homework. Many of you here are young parents. I was told that the kids presented here, some of them are below 1 year of age or they're at the age of 12. And during that time, some parents are hardworking enough to sign the diary the whole week to avoid disturbance. And when she's 13, you realize this is the time to talk to her about boys. She blocks. Mama, you're interfering with my privacy. You see, if my precious wife Mercy walked out on me because of misconduct, if one day my son Zig, my daughter Ivy told me, if only Dad, you are there for us, like you're there for many other kids, inspiring, motivating, invigorating our spirits. If only you kissed away our tears. If only you prayed with us, chances are we wouldn't be in a chain of the tragedies we are in today. We wouldn't be in crimes. I will be one more broken-hearted father, because to me, true success is when those closest to me love and respect and honor me the most. I will not compromise that for the ring of fame, for the gain of fortune. It is clear in my mind that I'm in this life for a short while should the Lord tarry. It is not worth it to drive 10 cars because I can only be in one car at one given moment. I can only sleep in one bed. I can only eat one plate. I must have my priorities right because my background is statistics. And when I was doing statistics, I realized that 1 out of 1 of all human beings die. They die. Therefore, legacy is not what I will leave behind. Legacy is who I will leave behind. Point number 5. Learn how to communicate. Learn how to communicate. You're too quiet for me, chances are very high because you're in church, and so I will dramatically change the mood. I'm going to give you some stories to see whether you can brighten up your faces. Can I give you the story of a good communicator or a bad communicator? Both. Okay, I'm going to start with a bad one, but it's going to be a hard one. You're going to be very attentive to follow. Let's try. Read of a story of this woman who wanted to divorce her husband, and she went to her attorney, obviously a man, because he didn't want a lot of discussion. And he asked her to be very specific, like how she asked. Okay, do you have any grounds? Oh yeah, we have about 10 acres north of town. No, I'm not asking those kind of grounds. I'm asking, do you have any garage with your husband? Oh, you're asking whether we have a garage with my husband. No, but just a tiny carport, but it's enough for a small car. I'm not asking a garage. I'm asking, does this man beat you up? Beat me up? Oh, never, 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 never. I'm up before him just about any morning. Okay, woman. What's wrong with your husband? She said, the guy simply can't communicate. Oh, many of you followed. Let's try. Can I try a good communicator? This is a dedication to the single parents in our midst, especially ladies. Read of a story of a woman who was in a retirement home, obviously an elderly woman. And on the very first dinner, she sat directly opposite a very handsome man, at least in her own opinion. And she stared at him so much so that he got uncomfortable and decided to confront her. I have the feeling you're staring at me. I am, sure. I am staring at you. Why are you doing that? Gorgeous me. You look exactly like my dad husband. The color of your eyes, your mannerisms, your stature, your eating behavior, you fit the description of my dad husband. Okay, woman, agreed, fine. How many times have you been married? Twice. A good hint for single mothers? Twice. Let me try one more. Yeah. I think now I have the audience I'm looking for. Or is it that I started on a very serious note? Okay, let's try one more. I read of a story of a girl who was in love with a man, and she went home excited and told the mother that she wants to get married. The mother said, you know very well that us Catholics don't get married to Baptists, cancel the engagement. And on hearing that, the girl began to deteriorate from stress to distress. Fortunately, the mother was a saleswoman, and she devised a strategy to get the man and the girl get married. And she told the girl, just give me a chance to date your boyfriend. And on the very first date, she literally closed the sale. The young man decided to become a good Catholic. He was convinced to convert from a Baptist to a Catholic. In about 6 weeks later, the girl went back to the mother crying. And the mother asked her, what's the problem, Mama? I thought we persuaded your boyfriend to become a good Catholic so that the two of you can go ahead with the engagement. And the daughter replied, that's the problem, Mama. You oversold the idea, now he's becoming a priest. Wow, that's a good communicator. I can see you following me. You know, when I grew up in Sunday school, and every time I left church, I would hear my parents saying, we were so blessed today. Leo tulibarikiwa. Okay, I agree. Tell me 3 things the preacher said. Wacha hiyo maneno. Sisi tulibarikiwa. Okay, fine. Just tell me one thing the preacher said. Please. We were blessed. And I grew up in a place where communication was a problem. I don't know whether you have ever gone to a meeting where you saw somebody speaking and you felt like lifting up your hand to tell him, it's okay, you can sit down, it's okay, it's okay. And maybe 10 of you here are interceding for me to finish. Now, this happens all the time because communication is hard. And sometimes talking to kids is even harder. So I'm going to give you 3 rules about talking to your children. Rule number 1. When talking to your children, rule number 1, say it as though you are saying it for the first time. Say it as though you are saying it for the first time. Never tell a child, si nilikwambia, unataka nikwambie mara ngapi? How many are married that they're in this hall? How many came here as couples? How many came here as couples? Can I see any two? Okay, there's a couple right here. Look at me, Grace. Look at me. Look at my eyes and say the truth and nothing but the truth. Did he tell you today, I love you? Today?
Yes.
Not at night. Every man has no problem saying it at night. Now, men have no problem saying it at night. Please understand. I didn't ask about last night. This morning. Did he tell you that?
Yes, in the morning.
He did?
Yeah.
You said you're married to him? Look at my eyes, not domestics. Did he tell you this morning, I love you? No, thank you. Another couple? Another couple? You married? Look at my eyes. Has he told you this morning he loves you? Has he texted? No. He said, no, one of these days I'll come here to speak about marriage, and he will begin to say it every day. No. You know what? A lot of African men believe the woman can see it. Si anaona. I mean, nyumba nimenunua, fees nimelipa. I think this is not a marriage seminar. But for those men, let me just say this. For those men who believe that it's a constant, they already told their wives, I love you. When I change my mind, I'll let you know. The priest was my witness. I'm here to challenge you. Say it as though you are saying it for the first time. Why? Listen, Mr. Evangelist. It's easier to tell her than to hire investigators. Because the way to a woman is through the ear. And if you stop speaking and he starts speaking to her, she begins warming to him. Brother, there is no demon here. Don't pray over it. If he begins to speak to her and you become quiet, she begins to warm up to him. If he's very consistent for 10 years, watch that space. Say it as though you are saying it for the first time. So to your children, repeat the message over and over and over again. Don't grow tired of saying the message over and over again. Number 2, every time you're talking to children, lower your tone. Don't shout. Lower your tone. For simple reason. Every time you raise your tone, you're mad, and madmen are not communicators. For those of you who live in mansionettes, and I'm speaking to mothers here, the mothers who, when they are downstairs in the sitting room, are shouting to a child upstairs, Wajiko, Wajiko! Please, 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 take a walk. It will even cut down your fat levels. Take a walk. Go to where Wajiko is and tell her what you want. Kids get confused. Don't turn your house to a bar. Number 3, you're talking about communication. The first rule was say it as though you're saying it for the first time. Number 2, lower your tone. Don't shout. Number 3, address the situation. Don't make issues personal. Address the situation. Don't make issues personal. Look at my eyes. What's your name?
Margaret.
Margaret, tonight, if you realize the house girl has over-roasted fish, are you looking at me?
Yes.
Don't tell her do like this. Uko na network. Iko sawa sawa. No, the girl said is okay. The girl said is okay. She's not at your level. That's why she's not here. That's why she's doing the dishes. So talk about the fish problem, not the head problem. If Peter didn't make the bed, address the bed's problem, not his head problem. No, there's nothing. There's nothing wrong with his head. He's simply 6. And you are that 6. That's the difference. That's the difference. Address the situation, don't make issues personal. Because labeling is disenabling. Point number 6, learn to listen to your child. Learn to listen to your child. Read of a story of a 24-year-old boy. Allow me to use the term boy because he behaved like a 6-year-old in a train with his 2 parents. And he kept on talking funny things. Dad, look at those trees. They're passing faster than the train. Look at the clouds. They're moving faster than us in the opposite direction. An adjacent passenger couldn't handle it anymore. He was so upset that he decided to confront the parents. And he said, look, I have the phone number of a good psychiatrist. I recommend your son to go there for a checkup. And the father replied very calmly to this man, I'm so sorry, son. You don't know the story. My son was born blind. He saw for the first time today, and he can't hide the thrill. Everybody has a story. In the early 70s, during the revival movement in the world, in those days when the dinosaurs were occupying the face of the earth, there was a revival meeting, and there was an evangelist who spoke the word of God so powerfully that somebody decided to respond to the altar call. And then he came here and decided to kneel down under the arms of the man of God. Then there was an usher there who had this man whispering to God a prayer. And the man who was kneeling down here, he was saying, no, I can't. No, I can't. Then the usher came to the man and said, say you can. Say you can. God is saying you can. And the man was saying, no, I can't. You know what? He was a hired killer. He had come there to kill somebody in the church. He was touched by God's word and he was saying, no, I can't kill, no, I can't kill. But the usher couldn't listen. You say you can, say you can. God wants you to do it. It's important to listen. 3 reasons why we must listen. 3 reasons why we must listen. Number 1, when you listen, you learn. When you listen, you learn. Hey, stop writing for only 1 second. Please, 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 look at me for one moment. Have you ever realized everything you say with your mouth, you already know? Every time you open your mouth to speak, you learn nothing. You begin to learn when you shut up and listen. There's nothing I'm telling you today accidentally. I've planned every statement I'm saying. So I'm not learning, you are learning. I'll begin to learn when I sit down and I listen to you and when you ask me questions. So when you listen, children teach you how to raise them up. When you don't listen, you lose. So when you listen, you learn. Number 2, why listen? Number 2, when you listen, you hear what isn't being said. When you listen, you hear what is not being said. People go on a trip to Turkey. They have seen a lot of things there. It was a business trip. They come back and talk all the stories. They run out of gas. Then you know the ideas that they have. And then you know what they don't know. And you identify it as a market gap. On the same note, when you listen to children so much, they teach you how to raise them up. In other words, you know what they know and what they don't know. Because you might be overestimating what they know. Number 3, why listen? Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. That means you can't know what is in my heart unless you listen to me. People don't care how much you know. People care how much you care. And they can tell when you're pretending to listen and when you're actively listening. You see, a lot of people listen with the intention of replying. They never listen with the intention of learning and understanding the story. They only pick a small bit for the purposes of giving an answer that in many cases was never solicited for. In many cases, when people are listened, they pour their hearts. And that's a problem half solved. In many cases, they are not even looking forward to your wise counsel, They are only looking for a caring heart. Point number 7. Empathize with your child. Empathize with your child. And to empathize means to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Read of a story of a young man who was so ambitious he wanted to become the president of his great nation. Then the father told him, son, do you realize at your age Bill Clinton was getting no raise? The boy paused for a moment, looked at the father and said, Dad, but do you also realize at your age Bill Clinton was already the US president? No, don't worry, in case you missed it, I'm going to give you another one, I promise. That of a story of a boy who was lectured by the father for almost a whole 1 hour on academic grounds. He wasn't performing well in school. At the end of the 1 hour lecture, the father asked the son, "Son, do you have any question?" Looking at the father's eyeballs, the boy said, "Dad, I have only one question. Dad, do you think my foolishness is hereditary or environmental?" No, if you missed, I'll give you one more. Now, this is a true case, a true story I witnessed. A school which is actually literally about 2 kilometers from here. I leave you to be imaginative. And I was the guest speaker. It was an annual general meeting. I was in the principal's office. A lady came in the office. She knew me. I didn't know her. She had heard me speak before. And she was upset because the daughter had misbehaved. And she gave the daughter some 2 slaps and then made a mistake. She called the girl, "Wewe ng'ombe sana." And the girl had some ideas very fast and said, "Mama, I'm not a ng'ombe. I am a calf." To empathize means, how did I want to be treated by my mother when I was in school? Some of you perhaps are telling your children to get an A in maths until the day they tell you, "Hey, mom, please, msema kesho mwongo, lete KCSE yako. Let's just have a look at how you performed. Let me just produce the same grades you produce." Some of you will not smile again. To empathize means, as we correct them on academic grounds, as we correct them on moral grounds, let's put ourselves in their shoes, because the same devil who misled us when we were growing up is still alive. Point number 8. Are you there? Acknowledge your child. To acknowledge means to appreciate. To appreciate. Okay, there are some couples here. Let me send some couples I haven't talked to. Please don't shy, don't shy. I want to take a walk. There's a couple right there. A couple this side. Hey, now they're hiding. The ones near me? Okay, let me pick 2 or 3 couples just to see whether we can learn a lesson out of it. Look at my eyes, look at my eyes. Has he commented about how smart you are today? Today? No. Thank you for being honest. I mean, your type make it to heaven. Another couple? Okay, the two of you. Has she appreciated the fact that you came to church today when many guys don't go to church? Has she told you, "Thank you for bringing me to church"? Don't worry, she's an African woman. Let's pick a few. The 2 of you? Oh my God, this is awesome. Who do I harass now? Yeah, I'll harass the lady. Same question. Do you realize many men don't go to church? They don't care about parenting. And here you are with your man right here. Have you told him, "Thank you that we've come to church today"?
Yes, sir.
She has. Wow, wow, wow. Amazing. Meanwhile, the majority of us take it for granted. So if you are seated next to your spouse right now, I'll give you 30 seconds to give some appreciation words. Appreciate something about that spouse right now. I'll stop the speech until you talk something to that man, that woman. Appreciate him, appreciate her. Right now, right now. Some of them are hearing it for the first time this week. But I can tell you this, and you can confirm with my Mercy who is there. You'll get to know her. I think between 5 and 6 alone, I may have appreciated her about 8 times. It is true. I went to pick her from her workplace. And let me say this. You solve a lot of issues just by learning how to appreciate one another. We don't have time for that. Let me go back to, we were talking about children. Do you remember? Now, let's go back to children. Now, I want to give you a story here. Look at this. Suppose you have this child who is not doing well in some subjects, or maybe, let's say this, in the mid-grade. They drop from a B plus to a C plus. Chances are very high you're using different scores, different school systems, but let me use that as an example. What I'm suggesting to you today, before you comment on the drop in the mean grade, look closely into the report card. Chances are they improved in one subject, let's call it Kiswahili, from a C plus to a B minus. You have a case, you have somewhere to start. Start with a positive. Ask them, how come you improved in Kiswahili? What can we do in your science, in your maths, in your English. But suppose they never improved in any subject, but they're doing very well in extracurricular activities, in music, in science congress, in drama, in basketball, in netball. Start right there. Ask your daughter, how come you're going to national level in music? Because success principles are fundamentally the same. It is about positive mental work attitude. It's about persistence and consistency. It's about teamwork and determination. It's about time investment. How can we apply the same in academics? Worst case scenario. Suppose you have this child never doing well in academics nor in extracurricular activities, but your daughter is a beauty queen. Then you have a case for the jury. Some careers just require beautiful girls who never confuse chair for share. There is something good in every person. Look for that good. You know, I teach management courses at the University of Nairobi and JKUAT. And I begin my lectures by telling the students what I'm just about to tell you. You develop people in the same manner in which you mine gold. When you're mining gold, you remove tons and tons and tons of dirt. But you don't go in the quarry looking for the dirt. You go in there looking for the gold. You develop people by looking for the gold, not for the dirt in them. You develop people by looking for the good, not for the fault. You know, some of us are gifted fault finders as though there's a reward for it. At the end of this meeting, they will complain we started late and we ended late. They will complain the hall was not packed. They will complain why the speaker was moving up and down. Why wouldn't he be a stable fellow like our PCA pastors? You know, I didn't say that, did I? There are some people who are gifted fault finders. I challenge you today. Do a close examination and look for the good. If you're looking for the good, you'll find it. Amplify the good. Minimize the faults. And your eyes will be conditioned to always see the good. Let's go to point number 9. Learn to respond, not to react. Learn to respond, not to react. One morning, my wife and I were driving to work, and I was overtaking a certain car. I was not in a hurry. There was a pickup behind us with some 3 young men. They were so much in a hurry. They were very upset with my overtaking speed. As they passed me by, they did me something like this. I don't think these are blessings in Kenya. Do you think these are blessings? You know what? I never answered back. Why, you may wonder. I have no clue whether these guys were rushing a child beaten by a cobra to hospital. I have no clue whether these people were running away from a crime scene. I have no clue whether these guys were high on substance abuse or whether they had lost a loved one. By answering them back, I allow them to build a ceiling that is too low for me to reach. I allow them to dictate my attitudes for the day. I allow them to add negative energy in my life for that day and perhaps for days to come. And this is tragically so on our Kenyan roads. I see motorists day in, day out throwing words at each other. And that fellow does not even have a clue whether you exist. Let me tell you the truth. Those guys were not doing that to me. They even muttered some words which I didn't hear. The windows were up. And I can tell you they were not attacking me. They were attacking the driver of the car I was in. I'm the one who was driving. I don't know whether you get the point. You know, in April 2008, I was invited to be a guest speaker. There was a meeting for high school principals in Nakuru. And on my way back, I received a call from a woman. There were many, many in their thousands. There's no way I could have known them. And she introduced herself as Mrs. Simeo. And she told me, look, Dr. Ali, I'd like you to come urgently to my school. There's a crisis. And I obliged. And on that material morning, as I went to that school, past International School of Kenya, they have since relocated. Now, there were heavy coffee bushes along the way. I was getting nervous. It was approaching 8 a.m. And the very first topic that morning was time management. There's a matatu that conveniently blocked me along the way. I was getting a little bit upset, to be honest. But by God's grace, the matatu driver parked on the side and I was able to overtake him. I parked just a few meters away from him, and then I came to the matatu driver. Before I asked him anything, he spoke to me. Mzee, sina shida. To be honest, I didn't know Mamze until that day. Then I asked him, where is Gavega High School? Then he pointed some 500 meters away. It was hidden by some trees. You can imagine my shock when I landed at school to learn that the principal and 4 other teachers were in that matatu. Had I called the matatu driver names, and then I go to school and speak to them this message, be calm, be controlled, don't react. Do you think they would have listened to my message? No. React is negative, response is positive. Classic example. If you go to a doctor and the doctor says your body is reacting on the treatment, you get nervous. The doctor says, you know what, we're going to change the prescription. Your body is reacting on the treatment. You get nervous because react is negative. If, however, you go to the hospital, then go for a medical checkup 2 weeks later, and the doctor says your body is responding to the treatment, you relax. Response is positive. I gave that story that I've given you a moment ago. I was doing some training for senior management, Ketepa, September that year. The then CEO, the immediate former CEO, stood up in the middle of my presentation. I was doing a motivational session the whole day from morning to evening. And at some point, the CEO could not handle it, and he came where I was. He grabbed the microphone and said, Kinyanjui, I want to share a point with you. And one morning, I was driving to my office, industrial area. At the Uhuru Highway, Haile Selassie roundabout, there was another motorist who was so much in a hurry. And there was some little bit of commotion between the two of us. There was no good fellowship between us. As he sped off his car, he did something to me with his middle finger. Now, my career does not allow me to illustrate. I leave it to your creative imagination. And he muttered equivalent words. Why? He was in a hurry. Why? He was headed for an interview. Where? Ketepa. He reached at the interview panel and realized the chairman of the interview looks familiar. He told him, sir, you look familiar. The CEO stood up, gave him a standing ovation, a warm handshake, and said, very much so. At the roundabout this morning describes our familiarity. And the fellow knew the interview is over. The man who later gave me the confirmation of that message told me, you know, Christopher Kibet, who was picked as the HR director, that guy was being interviewed for the position of HR director. In the shortlisting criteria, he had the highest score. He lost his job because he reacted. If you follow me on social media, and some of you who are here, at least I got 2 people telling me they follow me on social media. Last year, you may have seen one of the things I posted. So last year, I posted something interesting, and I said money does not change people. And we grew up believing that money changes people. I had people saying when we were growing up, huyu jamaa alipata pesa akabadilika sana. Ever heard of that? And you know that's a deception. And maybe there are some people here listening to me. Maybe there are 3 or 4 or 5 sons back at home. And you want to go back home and fix a pit latrine, a cowshed, or a fence for your father. And your father deliberately refuses to listen to everyone else, except you. And maybe you're the youngest son, simply because you have the money to fix the project. Then he tells the rest to keep quiet. Believe me, although that man does not have money, he is materialistic. Money does not change people. Money reveals people. There are people with a lot of money who are not materialistic, and there are people who do not have money who are materialistic. They only respect you if you have money. Now, I wanted to pick that analogy to tell you this. Circumstances don't define you, they reveal you. The Lord forbid, after this meeting, if a motorist hits your car, you open your mouth and shout, oh, shit! I warn you today, you didn't say that because you're hit by another motorist. You say that because a lot of shit dwells inside of you. The other car just revealed the shit. Hallelujah. What am I saying? Any other couple here? Good. Look at me. Look, what's your name, young lady? No, you're not. What's your name? Forget Mrs. Mwenda. What's your name? Christine, look at me. What's your name?
Peter.
If you ever find a funny text in Peter's phone from, what's your name? Yeah? From Maureen. If you find a funny text from Maureen in Peter's phone, before you say any word, this is my message for you. Take a walk, breathe some fresh air, come back, chances are very high you will censor the words you're going to use on him. And that's the difference between reacting and responding. If you're writing an email to an employee and you write it in anger, before you said the click button, before you click the send button, I suggest to you today, take a walk, breathe fresh air, come read the message. Chances are you're not going to send it in its original format. And that's the difference between reacting and responding. Learn to respond, not to react. Read of a story of a father who was cleaning his car. His 4-year-old son, unfortunately, started screaming on the car, and the car had scratches. The man reacted, and this is the best example I can give you on reacting. He reacted so badly, he began to hit the boy, and he hit him without realizing he was using a wrench of a car. And unfortunately, the boy's fingers became so weak, and he was admitted in hospital. 3 days later, the doctor's assessment, they all unanimously agreed the boy's 4 fingers must be amputated. The father couldn't believe it. He banged the door behind him, went back to the car, looked at the scratches again, and realized they were not random scratches, but the boy had inscribed the words, "Dad, I love you." He couldn't bear it, and he committed suicide. And you see, the Bible does allow you to be angry, but then says you should not let the sun set in your anger. Our God gets angry. Anger is our part of emotions. There are 4 emotions, and one of them is anger. But do not take decisions at the emotion of the moment. And that's the difference between responding and reacting. We have seen children committing suicide because their parents react, and they do not know what the father will do because of what they did in school or they did not do. A grade they didn't score. They fear so much so they can't bear it because they know they have a reacting father. Isn't it a word that the Bible does say, fathers, do not exasperate your children to anger. Learn to respond, not to react. Point number 10. Discipline your child. Discipline your child. You know, we are living in days where there's a lot of debate whether we should employ corporal punishment or not. Believe me, I'm not saying this because I'm in church. I have said this on national television. I believe in punishing children. And this is the rule I normally give. Between the ages of 0 to the age of 7, children understand physical punishment. Even when they are 2 weeks old and they bite the mother's teeth and the mother pinches them, they learn that the purpose for teeth is not to bite. It is food for the baby and something else for daddy. They learn very early. From the ages of 7 to the ages of 12, you withdraw privileges. They love their chocolate. They love the playing time. They love the TV time. You start withdrawing those privileges. From the ages of 13 to 19, you negotiate with them. Ask them a very simple question. What do you want done to you if you come home again after 6 o'clock? You will be surprised with how they are going to administer punishments on themselves. After the age of 19, I have good news for you. Don't worry, relax. The government of Kenya will help you. But I'm going to give you 3 simple rules about punishment. 3 simple rules. Rule number 1. Never miss a chance to punish children when they're in the wrong. Never miss a chance to punish children when they're in the wrong. Why? When children do the wrong thing, they expect to be punished. When you don't do it, they feel justice is denied. People expect and respect you for being principled. Don't be all things to all people. Stand for something. You earn respect when you are affirmative. They may disagree with you right now. Let me tell you, if you look back, if you flash back, there's a teacher or a parent who punished you 20 years back. You didn't like it at that moment, but now you can look back and thank God that they administered discipline on you. Does that make sense? The second thing about punishment, don't overdo it, don't underdo it. Punishment must be commensurate to the crime committed. When you overdo it, children do not feel loved anymore. And that's why we normally suggest never use your hands when administering punishment. When you overdo it, they push the boundaries. The God we serve is a God of boundaries. And when he created Adam and Eve, right the first instructions, he gave him boundaries. You may eat of any tree, but there's a tree not to eat. You must set family boundaries. I'll give you a personal example. In my house, my daughter is in class 6, my son is in class 2. They don't watch TV at all Monday to Thursday. Our children sleep 8:30. Within half an hour, they are totally asleep. So we watch 9 o'clock news. And we watch for about 15 minutes. I buy a newspaper every day. I don't like watching news for an hour. Funny enough, a lot of Kenyans watch 7 o'clock news, 9 o'clock news, 11 o'clock news, as though there's an exam about news tomorrow. And then they wonder where the time goes. I have a lot of students, doctoral students I'm supervising, master students. 5 years later, they can't finish. They tell me they have no time. Where do we get time? Almost every year I'm writing a book. Between now and December, I have 4 countries I'm going to be speaking while I'm speaking to you right now. I'm teaching 2 universities. I have 2 boards I'm appointed by the government. And I can guarantee you I'm in the house by 5 p.m. every day. Your time is stolen by gadgets, by mobile phones, by the TV, by tablets. These are the time stealers. And you remain strangers as spouses. You remain strangers with your children because you allow Nigerians in your sitting room, and Americans, and Italians. You have no time for each other. Now, you know what? My kids don't strain with their boundaries because by the time they were born, that discipline was already there. Hey, there is still hope for those who have been glued to the TV 24 hours. You can purpose from today to have a fresh page. The third rule about punishment, and perhaps the most important rule: praise in public, reprimand in privacy. What is public? In the presence of the house girl, public. In the presence of their siblings, public. Oh, Daktari, you're wrong. I want to punish them when everyone is there so that they learn a lesson. Wrong. When you do that, there is sentiments. You injure their egos. Children, just like adults, they have their space and their esteem and their ego. When you punish them, when it's you and the child alone, believe me, friends, brothers and sisters, they will still tell their brother or their sister, Dad corrected me. Mom corrected me. While it is the primary responsibility of fathers to discipline their children, the single mothers in our midst, you must appreciate that you must play that role in shaping the destiny of that child. For the Bible says, if you love your child, you'll punish them. If you do not punish them, then you might as well know you do not love your child. Point number 11. Reward your child. Reward your child. I was doing a speech one time for counseling heads. It was a national event. And the MC that day, she was a teacher of geography. She gave a story. In her school, 168 girls in Form 4 were getting below C+. And she told the girls, you know what? During these mocks, anyone who gets an A in my geography paper, 1,000 bob. Give me a high five. The teacher said in geography, 1,000 bob. Why are you reading maths? The teacher said in geography, 1,000 bob. Do you remember? There's a geography promise. In geography, 1,000 bob. There's a geography promise, brother. In geography, 1,000 bob. You remember the promise?
Oh, I do.
Oh, you remember the promise? In geography, 1,000 bob. Guess what? Out of 168 girls, 144 got an A. She went hiding. So rule number 1, promise what you can give. Concerning rewards, promise what you can give. Don't overpromise. Don't tell the child you're going to take them to Cairo this December unless you're sure you're in control of all variables. Rule number 2, you can't reward others unless and until you learn how to reward yourself. You can't reward others unless and until you learn how to reward yourself. What is rewarding yourself? At the end of the month, there's That's punishing yourself. Rewarding yourself means you recognize there's a time you'll not be able to work. Your daughter might get married in Australia. You must invest in your posterity. That's rewarding yourself. You see, Nairobians, we have peculiar behaviors. Most of us believe quality education is paying more than you can afford. I challenge you to desist from that. Don't be in competition with your former classmates or neighbors. Take your child to a school where you can afford. Most of us where we went in primary school is far much worse than the worst school in Nairobi. Take them where you can afford. Rule number 3 about rewarding good behaviors. A reward must be appreciated by the recipient. In other words, the recipient determines the value, not the giver. So don't give them something that they can't appreciate. Hey, Grace, you want to appreciate the evangelist tonight? And then you take him for some chips or MCA, he may not appreciate. But Serena, he might appreciate. A gift must be appreciated by the receiver. So, if you're making a promise in their primary school exams, for those of you with teenagers in their high school, then you must promise something that they will value and something they are likely to use for their benefit, not for their destruction. Number 12, and the last point. Number 12, believe in your child. Believe in your child. I honestly believe this is the take-home message. If you must remember one thing from me, then the next 5 minutes are the most critical. And there are many ways in expressing your fervent belief in your child, but nothing expresses that any more than the words you use on a day-to-day basis. For words have the power to break and the power to make. Words have the power to bless and the power to curse. Born blind, deaf and dumb, when she finally learned how to mutter some few words, Helen Keller said it eloquently. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will break my heart. And I believe there's some validity in it. Words and names carry power in them. His very name, Jesus, sealed his earthly mission. Jesus Christ, the anointed Savior. And through all scriptures, God gave particular names for people commensurate to their purposes. My mom had a brother by name Mureu. In my mother tongue, Mureu means Mlevi, the drunkard. And true to his word, the fellow drank changa every day and supplemented by planting bangi around his house. When he finally kicked the bucket, nobody suggested we do a post-mortem to investigate into the causes of his death. His name sealed the deal. In Nyamira County, we have a school by name Nyakimincha. Nyakimincha is a Guzi name for the tail, and the school has never disappointed. In a school neighboring Nyakimincha, there is a school known as Nyakoiba. Nyakoiba is a Kisii name for the thief. KCSE results this year for that school were all cancelled. There is a school between Kakamega and Bugoma. In some Luya dialects, it's pronounced Ebushinga, translated to mean the place of fools. And believe me, friends, the school has lived up to its name. In Nyeri Mukurweini, we have a school by name Kiagoma, which was renamed 2 years ago because Kiagoma, the devils for the non-Kikuyus in our midst. I have a friend of mine by name Grace. She has a brother by name Kavoa, pronounced in Akaba language. Kavoa, translated to mean Kanae Chapwa. And true to his name, the young man was beaten from the age of 4 to the age of 18. A teacher or a parent found a reason to kick him every day until he ran away because of the beatings to sell clothes in Gekoba. You know, I'm trying to show you from different tribes, different regions, about the power of names. Let me just take you across the borders. By far the largest tribe in Ghana is known as the Ashanti tribe. They have a unique way of naming their children. They name them after the day of the week in which the child is born. The children born on Monday have a given middle name, Kwasi. Akwasi is translated in the Ashanti language to mean kind, generous, peace-loving, godly. Either by coincidence or otherwise, it's estimated that 75% of all corporate leaders and Christian missionaries in Ghana are the Akwasis. The children born on Wednesday have a given middle name, Akwaku. Akwaku is translated in the Ashanti language to mean rough, arrogant, mean, terrible. Guess what? Government statistics reveal that over 75% of all crimes in Ghana are committed, guess by who? Akwakus. Akwakus. Let me give you two local stories. Then I want us to draw two lessons out of this. I'm going to mention names of people you know. Don't be disturbed. I have the full permission of the bearers of these names. In the year 2008, I was doing some training for KCC. I was the lead trainer there. And I realized that the MD got a job when he was very young. He was 36. He had only worked in one place, East Africa Breweries, before he became the MD there. He had one college degree from KU. He didn't bother, like many of you, to do postgraduate studies. During that time, Francis Maige Mwangi, his elder brother Ken Joroge Mwangi was the National Director of Procurement. The other brother Lamek was doing apartment after another in Nairobi. Another brother had a chain of businesses in the US. So I asked Francis, how come all your brothers are so successful? And when he left KCC, he became the general manager at Aga Khan. And when he tried his hand in politics, he became the first governor in Murang'a. Most of you recognize him today as Mwangi area. So he told me, look, Kinyanjui, I'm the chair of the board, Kagodo High School. I'm going to invite you to speak to my parents one day. And please, spare with us. Ask my father that question. On the very first Friday night, as I spoke with his father, a retired primary school teacher, I began to appreciate why so much success in one family, why all of them succeeded. The father spoke a great future into their lives. Most of you listening to me here might recognize the name of Lola, the lady who's been leading a 76 billion old mutual investment in Kenya. She got the job when she was 30. As I speak to you today, she's 37. There are 4 girls in that family, and the youngest is 29. And Lola says, as we grew up, our dad said we are going to be important people in this country and beyond. It was induced in our minds earlier on, she says, that we were meant to be influencers. The end result is all those 4 girls are exceptionally successful. 3 months ago, I was invited by Dr. Emilio Kelo to speak to Form 4 students at McKinney High School. As I spoke with that lady before I went for the meeting, she opted to pray for me. But I remember asking her one question about her family because it is a very touching story. Most of you know here that the 9th Vice President of Kenya, Moody Awori, is her brother. Huntington Awori is a common bread in corporate boardrooms. Professor Nelson Awori was the first doctor to conduct a kidney transport in Africa. The Professor Nelson Awori Center in Upper Hill is named in his honor. Agri Awori was a Minister of Communications in Uganda. Dr. Mary Okello herself is the owner of McKinney School. The story, on and on and on. And you know what he says? You know, Kinyanjui, our father, who was an Anglican priest, prophesied the success you see today. And today, including the CEO, Bakris, is a grandchild of that man. The power of the spoken word. When I speak to prisoners, they tell me the same thing. I'm exactly where my mother said I'm going to be. As I grew up, Mama said, you are jail material. Here I am as Mama perfectly said it. There is nothing like the slit of the tongue. It's like a stray bullet. It kills real. It was not intended to kill, but it kills. You cannot recall the spoken word, just like you cannot recall an arrow out of the bow. The Bible says, thou shalt not curse a deaf person. Leviticus 19:14. Deaf people do not hear. Why then such a scripture? It is because of the damage those words will do on the vessel in which they are stored. They will damage you even before they damage the intended recipients of those words. Life and death is in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruits thereof. Proverbs 18:21. You must choose to bless your child. Call them the terrific two, not the terrible two. Call them the sensational six, not the troublemaker. Train your tongue to speak the future you want to see, not the doom that you do not want to see. And therefore, because I believe in the power of the spoken word, I bless your families, and I bless your children, and I bless your future in Jesus' name. Thank you.